So speaking of joy and art and math, I see I see some baskets behind you. Could you tell us a bit about uh, one of these baskets? Maybe you can, and then
These all rhyme.
okay.
And what I mean by that is that, so there's a traditional basketry form um, um, called river cane splint. It's a flat splint technique. Usually it's done in twill. These aren't done in twill, but a standard plated basket, plated as opposed to woven, plated baskets, you start with all of the material that you're going to need for the entire basket. You add nothing. You're not like adding strips as you work up. Instead, you weave a base, and then you turn a corner like that in the middle of a side. And what it does is you're violating the rules of plane geometry. You're weaving out a fourth of the required angle for it to be flat, if that makes sense. Okay. And then, so that's how you get up into space.
So is it, sorry, just to back up, is this a Cherokee basket weaving technique? Or?
It's actually pretty universal, but it is one of the ones that we traditionally use.
Okay.
Okay. This, by the way, is not, it kind of looks like it might be hickory bark for people who know my work. It's not hickory bark because I do not want to denude all of Arkansas of hickory trees. So this is recycled paper. So this is the nerdiest epiphany I've ever heard of. But what it was I used to teach with this French guy who liked to draw all over people's plated basket. We used to teach pie with that basket. So you start with a square base. If you weave a standard basket, you weave up, finish it off. The base is square, the lip is circle. You can estimate pi with it because the base and the lip are equal, right? So essentially that also violates a fairly dearly held tenet of Greek geometry that you can't square a circle, but you can circle a square. Okay. Well, we used to do this with teenagers, and the last thing a teenager wants to do if they have battled through learning this new technique in order to make a basket is to have the French guy pull out his Sharpie and write all over your basket. Nobody wants that. So I used to weave small piles of these baskets so that instead of having him write all over other people's baskets, I could just hand him one of mine and he would scribble on it instead of wrecking somebody else's first effort baby, you know. So I was watching Star Trek doing that, and I lost track of what I was doing, and I put the wrong number of angles on the bottom. And I kind of liked what happened because it pulls the base completely out of flat, right? So I started doing it intentionally. We're several generations down the road now. So all the baskets you see have the same number of strips and the same plan. The plan is that every base has 3 corners, not 4. And 3 corners means it's not going to be flat. And also, I start with a rectangular base, which means it's not going to be flat. And so I weave it up, and then I finish it off with 3 corners. And you can tell I've done that because there's the proof.
But this topography, is it usual or is it a Kimsha convention?
It's me, I think. I've never seen anybody else do it, and I explain it to other weavers, and they kind of look at me like, I don't know why you're doing that. It's interesting, but I don't know why you're doing that. But I'm learning some things about tension and weaving. I mean, part of the problem, of course, for the basket to make sense of what I'm doing is that I'm still weaving rectilinear, so that the strips meet in as close to a 90-degree angle as they can arrange for. But if you've got 3 points and you're insisting on a 90-degree angle, that doesn't work, does it? So you find these sort of accommodations that happen. So everything meets in a square, except right there you've got pentagon, and right there you have a triangle when things close in, you get a triangle. When things open out, you get a pentagon. So there are, for this number of strips that I picked and the number of corners that I'm adding, and the number of strips per corner, there are 38 possible baskets, and I am 6 away from having woven all of them. When I finish them all, I'm going to flip them all over, so you're looking at the bases, and I'm going to take a picture of the whole set of them in order so that I can determine so I can observe and see what changes. Each set of baskets that you can weave in each grouping of strips has one that's unique, and the rest of them have mirror versions. But there's always one that's bilaterally symmetrical in a way that can't be spun in a different way. And so I'm curious about this. So my daughter and I have been running the math on it, and we found some interesting circle math and torsion math involved with these. Because essentially I'm forcing the strips to twist in a way that isn't necessarily good for storing anything, but it's interesting mathematically and visually as well. I mean, they're kind of cool little creatures.